Quarterback Deshaun Watson on Friday. This coming after a trade where the Browns sent a package of picks, including 3 first-rounders to the Texans, and then signing Watson to a $230 million contract guaranteed. Watson has 22 active civil cases for sexual assault and sexual misconduct. Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski were at the podium with Watson, while owners Jimmy and Dee Haslam were not in attendance. They did make themselves available via Zoom afterwards. Here's Watson addressing the media for the first time.
I don't have any regrets. Like I said before, the things that are off the field right now that came up, caught me by surprise because I never did anything that these people are alleging. And I know a lot of people say that I took the year off, and I used that to be able to clear my name like the previous 2 weeks. And just to continue to fight that. And I just continue to work and become a better person, a better player, and just a better son, like my mom has always taught me.
All right, Dominique back here with us. Teddy Bruschi joining us. Teddy, good to see you. As we just heard Watson say, he has no regrets, and he will continue to fight to clear his name. Nick, I'll start with you. How do you view Watson and the Browns after this press conference?
I badly want to believe Deshaun Watson, but it feels impossible just to accept him for what he's saying right now, given that there's 23 people on the other side making accusations against him that seem to be fairly credible. And maybe amongst those 23 people, some people are lying, but it's hard for me to come to the conclusion that they aren't telling the truth. So I wish that I could say that I really believed him and I want to root for him going forward, particularly because he's a black quarterback and he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And we know how far this league has come with black quarterbacks, and Deshaun Watson is going to be one of the best ones in the league. So it hurts me in a particular way to have to be here and say that I'm not comfortable with the decision that the Browns made. I'm not surprised the decision they made because frankly, it's a reflection on us. Like, as up in arms as all of us want to be about this, we have to understand that the Browns made this calculation because they know that, after all, if he can play as well as he's been playing in the past, then none of this is going to matter. Like, people aren't going to stop watching the Browns. People aren't going to stop buying tickets or buying jerseys. Like, they know that because that's how we've treated all of this in the past. And the last thing I wanted to say is, throughout this whole process, like, a lot of us have been criticized for not being hard enough on Deshaun Watson, but it comes the other way also. Like, I get a lot of criticism for being too hard on Deshaun Watson. And people bring up old situations and ask, why weren't you this hard on this player or that player? And to that, I'd say that context matters. And the idea that we are in like the post-Me Too movement, like that changes the way that all of us look at, or it should have changed the way that all of us look at these type of allegations. So suggesting that somehow if you weren't harder on someone in the past that you should go easier on Deshaun Watson suggests that we haven't had our eyes, many of us, we shouldn't have had to have our eyes open, but many of us in recent years have had our eyes open to how bad sexual assault can be and how rampant a problem it is inside and outside of sports. So to me, that kind of reminds me of hearing people like say all lives matter, and like few years ago, saying all lives matter meant nothing. But now there's context behind it. Saying all lives matter means something totally different than it did in the past. So like in defense of the people who I think are not quite ready yet, because I'm not there yet. I'm not ready to talk about Deshaun Watson or the Browns on the field. I don't begrudge anybody who does so. And I hope Teddy does a good job of setting us up for that, because I'm trying to do a good job of covering all this other stuff. But I'm just not ready to delve into what this means for the Browns going forward. I'm still kind of hung up on the accusations, the 23 accusations that Deshaun Watson is facing.
No, you did a good job, Nick. I totally understand where you're coming from. And I watched the entire press conference, and it's a very difficult first step that the Browns and Deshaun had to take. And they did it. And I'm not grading the press conference or anything like that, but there were parts of it that were uncomfortable. When a reporter continually asked him about why'd you have so many massage therapists and why so many when can't you pick a handful? it was uncomfortable at times. And so the teammate aspect of all this is where I want to go now. So the teammate aspect of being a teammate, it's really, you have to have an incredible ability to compartmentalize that this is who you may believe that this person is on the side and deep down, and then also be supportive in terms of winning football games with him. So I disagree with some of these things I've read that he allegedly did, and it makes me feel strongly. But man, here's my quarterback, so you got to put these in different sections of your brain to be successful as a football player in the Cleveland Browns locker room. There are so many different perspectives. The female fan perspective, and every player that's in the league has a strong-willed woman at home, more than likely, okay? Asking my wife just recently, okay, babe, how do you feel about this? You feel as a woman, how do you feel about this Deshaun Watson thing that's going on? And she tells me how she feels, but I posed to her another question. I said, all right, babe, what if Deshaun Watson was my teammate? And there's a little bit more of an emotional response that comes out of that. So we as players have to deal with how our significant others deal with this at home also. Compartmentalize that. Our personal feelings, how we feel about Deshaun Watson, how we treated some of those women allegedly, okay, and then deal with that. Then all of a sudden, okay, what's the game plan now? This guy's going to be throwing me the football. How do I deal with it? So it's a complex situation. It's a difficult situation that the Cleveland Browns organization has taken on. The press conference was step one. We'll see how they do from here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Nick, can I jump in here real quick? Because I have a couple questions for you guys as former players. There's one thing, and I want to start with this, and Nick, I'll start with you. Did you have any issue that the owners weren't there, that Dee and Jimmy Haslam didn't show up? You know, this blockbuster deal, the most guaranteed money ever, $230 million, right? You got your guy. Why did you only make yourself available via Zoom? At first, I just wanted your thoughts on that.
No, I mean, I'd love to hear what you think about it. I think, obviously, you're signed a franchise quarterback. The owner is normally going to be there. It's surprising to me that he's not. I'd be interested. It's silly for Teddy and I to sit up here and monopolize this conversation with you sitting right there.
No, I just meant, like, if it was a situation, do you think Robert Kraft would have been there, Teddy?
Yes, I do. I mean, when you make something of this magnitude, Molly, I mean, to have everyone on the same page and support, you know, but like I said, that was an extremely tense, you could almost feel a little bit of the tension coming out from that press conference that I saw, to have an ownership piece of it there, to also sort of freelance and deflect with questions. Maybe it was better for them. I mean, maybe they have strong feelings also that they still have to get through. I'm sure AB, I mean, and Barry and also Stefanski, I mean, I'm sure they have women at home and personal views about they had to hold back right there, because you have to try and get past things. And if that's the best way that they had to do it, keep the owners out, you got to go with that.
Yeah, to me, it felt like the owners were dodging. They should have been there. And the other thing I want to ask you, Nick, and then go wherever you want. I know you wanted to piggyback off him. The other thing I took an issue with, and I wanted your take on this, is so I had a problem with Watson got the $230 million guaranteed, right? And the way they structured his contract is if he was punished, right? So if he loses these 22 civil cases and he was punished in his first year, he would only be penalized $1 million and still receive the $229 million guaranteed. So I said that's kind of protecting him essentially for bad behavior. And I took issue with that when we discussed this prior. Now, when GM Andrew Berry was asked about that, they said, oh, it had nothing to do with the fact that Deshaun Watson might potentially miss the first year. It was just freeing them up for free agency. I wanted to get your reaction on that as well, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, I think Teddy made the point that they brought him in. He's on their team now, and they're going to do what they can to help him. And that's one of the things that they're going to do to help him. Like, honestly, I could care less about how much money Deshaun Watson loses or gains in this situation. Like I mentioned at the beginning, I wish I could believe him. I hope that he's right. I hope that I'm wrong, but it doesn't feel like it. Right now, given the mountain of accusations on the other side. I would say that to your point about the owners being there, that was a choice. It wasn't about schedule. Like when I signed my free agent deal with the Ravens, the owner was there. I was a mediocre cornerback. not the franchise quarterback going forward. Like, the owner is at the press conference when you sign a big time free agent. So like, that was a choice that they made. That was an interesting choice, that they didn't want to face the music for the decision that they made. They didn't want to answer any questions. And I think they should be held accountable for that. And as for the players on the team, I think Teddy made this point. Like, I don't think the players should be crusading against Deshaun Watson. They're on the team with him. They have to work with him. But I do think that the repercussions should come from us as the fans. Like, that's the point. The reason why they did this and the reason why they're comfortable doing this is because they know that we don't care. Like, as much as we grandstand on TV or on Twitter or whatever, we all do it. None of us actually care enough to do anything about it. So they know that the bottom line is that he's going to play well, and that's all that matters. And I'm rooting, like, I like Andrew Berry. I've heard incredible things about Stefanski off the field as far as the commitment that he has to employees in that building. Like, these people sound like great people that I want to root for. Deshaun Watson is someone who I would like to root for. But it's hard for me. I can't right now. And to the point I made to start is, like, we're going to have plenty of time to talk about football stuff. In a year or two from now, this will be a footnote. As sad as that is, when Deshaun Watson goes into Hall of Fame, this will not be a big part of the conversation. We've seen it happen time and time again. But while we have this time between now and the start of the season, when we're going to be talking about a lot more football, like, I can't bring myself to break down what it means for Deshaun Watson and the Browns on the field nearly as much as I feel compelled to bring up the impact that it's had on the 23 women who accuse him of sexual assault.
Let me just pause you really quick, because you've been so eloquent and excellent on this, Dominique, and I appreciate your perspective. But when we say, like, we don't care, and I know you're talking about the majority of the fans, 40% are women, and we do care. So I just want to pause on that. So even if people win Super Bowls, if guilty, these are allegations, if guilty, we do care. I just want to make sure clear on that.
No,
maybe I'm just speaking from the female perspective, but trust me.
I don't want to push back, and I don't mean we don't care.
No,
like, no one cares.
No.
I guess my point is, what does that caring? Like, people talk about, like, how you show what's important to you, and to me, it's about sacrifice. Like, I sacrifice for the things that are important to me, and that's how I show I care. Like, I can tell my wife and my kids I love them all I want, but the sacrifices, to me at least, is what shows that I really care about them. And to me, like, us as a country and us as a fan base, like, it's many of the social issues that we claim to care about, we are unwilling to sacrifice for. So I guess that's my point. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be insensitive or insulting by suggesting that no one really cares. But my point is, ain't nobody going to do nothing about it. Like, we've been talking about since George Floyd and since Me Too. Like, we all get on here, and again, Molly, it's not a personal attack on you. It's more attack on me and men who are in power. Is we grandstand on Instagram and Twitter, and we put up black squares, and we stand with everybody, but ain't nobody trying to sacrifice. And that's how you show that you care. That's how you show your commitment to something. As a football player, Teddy and I know this, and, like, forget as a football player, as anyone. Like, Molly, you're very successful. You got here by sacrificing, and we all know that because you cared about it. And that's my point, is, like, we can say we care, but we don't care until we sacrifice. That's just me. Sorry, Molly.
No, don't be sorry. You're excellent. Teddy, any final words, or are you good?
I'm going to leave it with what Nick said. Well said.
Yeah, well said. All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you both, guys. When we come back here on First DVRs, now to the NFL, the AFC West is stacked. Arguably the toughest quarterback division, with Russell Wilson joining Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes without Tyreek Hill, Derek Carr with arguably the best receiver in Devontae Adams. Here's Broncos GM George Payton on a Super Bowl winning QB.
I just think when you have a unique player, you go get him. And that's what we did. And I'm not sure about the other teams, but it was a unique opportunity for us to get a franchise quarterback, and we did.
Meanwhile, Andy Reid losing a unique player, speaking for the first time since Tyreek Hill went to Miami. Take a listen.
We came in aggressive, and then after we got to a point, we just said, listen, in this day and age, you have issues that you have to deal with the cap, and so we felt like it was better to allow him to go ahead and be traded. So I love Tyreek Hill. There was no rift between Tyreek Hill and myself. I thought he deserved an opportunity if that's where he wanted to go. It put him in a place where his home, where he has a home, and at the same time, it gave us great compensation.
Andy's shirt really giving me vacay vibes. Neek and Dan back here with us. Neek, which AFC West quarterback's in the best situation right now?
I think it's Justin Herbert right now. The additions that they made, like they have Bosa opposite Mack on defense, really impressive. They added J.C. Jackson at the cornerback spot, and they have Derwin James, who might be the best football player, just period, in all of football. When he's healthy, I'm not sure that there's anyone better at their position than Derwin James. Maybe next to Aaron Donald. He's that good a player. And that's not even until you get to the offensive side of the ball, where they revamped their offensive line. They got all-pro level tackle and Slater, who's still in his second year on a rookie deal. They have both of those receivers back, and they got Austin Eckler in the backfield. I think the only spot where you could argue that he is not better set than the rest of the quarterbacks in the division is the coaching spot. And I think Brandon Staley's a smart coach, and he's going to get better as he goes along. But I think other than that, everyone else in that division has some deficiencies, and I'm not sure that this roster has too many deficiencies on them compared to the rest of their division.
Yeah, I disagree. I think it's Russell Wilson. Now, I agree with a lot of the things that you said in regards to the Chargers. Listen, this division is an absolute bloodbath. It's incredibly loaded. The reason I say the Broncos is this, and it's Russell Wilson. They can do schematically whatever is necessary to win and play well offensively in football games. The scheme that Nathaniel Hackett, their new head coach, is bringing over from Green Bay, it is from that Mike Shanahan, Kyle Shanahan, Gary Kubiak tree, which we know has the ability to have quarterbacks put up huge numbers, but also if teams aren't going to allow the quarterback to throw the ball a ton, it's got one of the most diverse run games in the NFL historically. This guy, Nathaniel Hackett's been an offensive coordinator in the NFL for the last 6 years, okay? For context for everybody at home, he's had a top 10 run game 4 out of those 6 years. One of those was in Jacksonville, okay? His quarterbacks on average, in ththose 6 years, 3 of them were with Blake Bortles, 3 of them were with Aaron Rodgers, over 30 touchdowns and 4,000 yards. So we're talking about schematically just placing a quarterback in. Sometimes they're great in Aaron, sometimes they're average to below average in Blake Bortles. They perform well. Now we're adding it to an offensive line that's good, one of the best running backs in young running backs in football in Javonte Williams, and a plethora of skill positions. I'm not saying that this is a blowout over Justin Herbert or the Las Vegas or even Patrick, but just the ability to do either or. And I'm starting to think Kansas City, but the ability to do either or matters to me.
The reason why we push back, and this is what I think most people are considering one of the toughest divisions in the history of football. So, like, there are really no bad choices in this division. But I would push back because the one deficiency that I think that we could point to the Chargers is the coaching spot. And Nathaniel Hackett, as much as you raved about him, he's still a question mark. We haven't seen him as a head coach. It's very different than being an offensive coordinator. So there is still a question mark there at that spot. Absolutely. You can't guarantee that he is going to be an exceptional head coach, which I think is what it's going to take. And the other place I push back is offensive line. If you didn't think the offensive line in Seattle was all that good, you're looking at statistically a comparable offensive line. The Broncos' offensive line was not as good as people are talking about. Like, it wasn't a great upgrade. He's moving to a similar situation. Russell is, from the pressure standpoint and from the run game standpoint, he's moving to a similar situation with 2 all-pro receivers. It's a lot. Go look up the numbers, Dan. Turn your face sideways all you want. Look up the numbers. They were not a dominant offensive line.
All right, so this is why I think, like, the scheme matters so much.
Oh, yeah, the scheme will take the pressure off of them because of their ability to run the ball. I agree with that. But
so, like, this offensive line,
the talent isn't there.
But the offensive line is going to perform better because this scheme is so. Look at the coaches that have come from this tree in the NFL right now. We're talking Sean McVay. We're talking Matt LaFleur. We're talking Zach Taylor. Like, these coaches, they go from this tree that are very sound in this scheme, and then Arthur Smith, and then they go and become really, really good at that role. And that's why I don't know Nathaniel Hackett personally, but I'll bet money that he's going to be really good in Denver.
So my point with that is you're right. All those coaches have had a lot of success, but all those coaches, I don't think any of them made their quarterbacks. It's a result also of the quarterbacks being really impressive in that situation. So I'm not making the point that Russell Wilson is not a good enough quarterback to do it. I'm making the point that you can't guarantee that Nathaniel Hackett is that great of a coach. Like, we're looking at Sean McVay, Witten had to get Matt Stafford, right?
Let me ask you one question. Hypothetical world. If I took Russell Wilson and put him on the Chargers and I put Justin Herbert on the Broncos, who then do you think is in a better situation?
I still think it's Russell Wilson. Like, I still think it's the Chargers. I like what the Chargers have, the flexibility they have going forward, because it also goes to the money that's going to be tied up in Russell Wilson when they extend him eventually, and the money that's already tied up in his contract now. That gives the roster less flexibility. Justin Herbert is still, they have him on a rookie deal. They have Slater on a rookie deal. Derwin James is coming to the end of his rookie deal. Like, that roster.
But they got one more year with Herbert on the rookie deal, right? Like, realistically,
Agreed.
they got this one season.
Well, they get one more year, and then they backload the contract and amortize the cap hit over all of that. I still think that, like we talked about Patrick Mahomes, the bill is just coming due for Patrick Mahomes, despite the fact that he already signed the contract. So that's my point, is there's more time. It's a better situation there. Your point about Nathaniel Hackett in that offense is a good one. If Nathaniel Hackett had head coaching experience, I'd be a little bit more comfortable in that. We don't know, because being a head coach, we see from Mike McCarthy that it's more than just scheming an offense. There are other things that's going to be required of him that he's yet to do.
And I also have to see what happens at the end of April in the draft with Kansas City, Molly. Like that's my answer today. But if Kansas City goes out and gets a Jahan Dotson and then a Jeremy Ruckert from Ohio State and Penn State, they got 4 picks in the top 62.
No,
that changes the way I look at the offenses in this division.
Real quick, guys, before we go to break, I'm just curious. It felt like the NFC West was the best division in football. Do you feel like it's now the AFC West?
Oh, God, yes. I don't. Yeah. I think Dom saying it's one of the best divisions ever is completely accurate.
The worst quarterback in there is a top 15 guy, and that's rare. And there's a bunch of good defense.
And he has the best receiver in football on his team.
It's going to be scary.
Absolutely. All right, we'll leave it there, guys. Still to come here on First Take. Devin Booker, Joel Embiid, both made. Dan, you're going to like this. It's about time we showed Detroit some love. You know who's certainly made for Hard Knocks? The Lions coach, Dan Campbell, and clearly HBO felt the same way. Let me just refresh your memory.
So this team's going to be built on, we're going to kick you in the teeth, all right? And when you punch us back, we're going to smile at you. And when you knock us down, we're going to get up. And on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off, all right? And we're going to stand up. And then it's going to take 2 more shots to knock us down. All right. And on the way up, we're going to take your other kneecap and we're going to get up. And then it's going to take 3 shots to get us down. And when we do, we're going to take another hunk out of you. Before long, we're going to be the last one standing. All right. That's going to be the mentality.
Just going for it.
My guy.
Just going for it.
Not a coach that I'm rooting for more in the NFL than Dan Campbell. I played with Dan in Detroit, and I've watched him play games with like RoboCop type arm braces on because his body's so beat up. I think he's a perfect coach for that city. Hard Knocks. I'm excited that it's there.
He's a gamer.
Jared Goff was on Hard Knocks before, right? And then we learned that he didn't learn very much in school.
He didn't know the sun rose in the east instead of the west. Yeah.
This is going to be a good
All right, Nick, what do you think? What do you think? You like the Lions on Hard Knocks?
It seems fun. Like, between Jared Goff learning about basic facts about the world and science is going to be great, and Dan Campbell, his speeches, his pre-practice speeches, I feel like are going to have game day intensity. I'm looking forward to this. There may not be much Lions football to watch in like December or January. It may not be that interesting.
That was it's unnecessary though. Just because Stephen A is not here doesn't mean you have to take your shot at Detroit.
I'm not. Detroit's beautiful. I was just there. My cousin lives there. It's a fun place to be in the summertime. But they will not be in the playoffs. Is that crazy to say? Like, it's fact.
I don't know. In the NFC?
Season, the exciting part of their season is going to be the preseason. It's going to be Hard Knocks, watching them bite kneecaps and whatnot. And Jared Goff learn about the position of the moon. Do you think he knows anything about, like, The moon? No. Does he even know what it is?
All
He
right,
thinks
all
it's a
right,
big
all
ball
right.
of cheese.
Let's leave it there. I like it. I think it's a good fit, and I'm with you. Detroit's a good time. Downtown, they've really built it up. People should check it out. Let's go over to Naptown now, though, gentlemen. The Colts, they're starting a new quarterback week 1 for the 7th straight year. This season, it'll be a proven vet in the 4-time Pro Bowler, Matty Ice. After 13 years with the Falcons, Matt Ryan headed to Indy. Colts head coach Frank Reich had this to say this weekend about Matt Ryan, telling NFL Network, I think everyone saw from the outside that this is a good fit. Like, people can universally agree. You got a guy who's still playing at a high level and a team and roster that is built to make some noise. We needed each other. I love that quote. Dan, is it more likely the Colts over or underachieve?
Well, as I sit here today, it's going to be an underachievement. Now, Matt Ryan's an absolute stud. He's still playing at big-time level football-wise. But the Colts, I don't think, are as good of a roster as I kind of felt they were mid-November last year right now. I mean, they don't have a left tackle right now. They don't have a number 1 bona fide tight end right now. Their starter retired in Jack Doyle. And they don't have a number 2 or a number 3 wide receiver. And their number 1 wide receiver, Michael Pittman, is good. I still think there's some question marks if he's your bona fide one. And so and they got to do all that without a first-round pick this year. And so how do they supplement this offensive roster that run blocking wise, this offensive line is phenomenal. And with Jonathan Taylor as an MVP candidate, they're phenomenal. They're not great in pass protection, and they don't really have a plethora of pass-catching options. Now, Matt Ryan will be more accurate than Carson Wentz, which will lead to a better performance by those receivers, but it's still not in that conference. It's still going to be really difficult for me to sit here and think that Matt Ryan, unless they get some supplemental pieces via the draft and maybe some extended weeks of free agency, that it's going to be this team that all of a sudden can go and beat, some of those top 4 or 5 teams in the conference. I will tell you this, Molly. I do not think that after they moved on from Carson Wentz, I did not feel great about their options or chances of winning the division. Matt Ryan still gives them a very solid chance to win that division in contention with the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you're right about the conference being tough, but I don't think the division is that tough. So I guess whether they're going to overachieve or underachieve, I would say overachieve because I'm setting the line. I don't think people think they're going to be able to take that division from the Titans. And I think that's hard for us to have this debate where they overachieve or underachieve if we don't determine what the expectation is. And right now, I think the expectation is probably a wild card, and I think they'll overachieve because I think they can win that division. You pointed out all the holes that they have, and you also pointed out that there's still time to fill them. But the big acquisition that they made was a quarterback, most important position on the field. And I know that Matt Ryan is an MVP, Matt Ryan, and Carson Wentz was not terrible for them last year. He was just terrible in important moments. And I think the addition of a veteran, smart quarterback like Matt Ryan elevates them in those moments. And I think that gets them past their division rival, the Titans, and they win the division. They're not going to go in a deep playoff run, though.
Yeah, I guess it's all about what your expectations are. If it's funny, it's I guess not funny, but ironic. If you had asked this question and we went back in time to week 15 last year, the Colts were, in many people's eyes, certainly mine, the team that no one wanted to play. Like, they had just gone on that month stretch where they hammered Buffalo and hammered Arizona, and you're like, this team's playing as good as anybody. And I think the question you have to ask is, when Matt Ryan comes in, like, does he not do the terrible left-handed interception against Tennessee to lose the game, or the crosser that Byard picks off? Does he not do the last 2-week stretch against the Raiders and the Jacksonville Jaguars to play so poorly? But he also was a quarterback that played good football for a 3-month stretch last year. And I think it's a fair question to ask, whether you don't like numbers or whatever. Do we feel really confident that Matt Ryan is going to come in and go 28-plus touchdowns and 7 interceptions or less? Like, that would be a very good performance.
Yeah, by the numbers, and like if you go QBR by all situations, they're pretty comparable. They're not very different as far as quarterbacks are concerned. Right. But I do think that part of this is psychological. Honestly, I agree. Like, I think part of this is that building. And I promise you that building feels better now than they did even when they first acquired Carson Wentz. From what I understand, he didn't have too many fans when they brought him in there. It was one guy that was pushing for him, and then he got there. And I think that's a bad situation. That's not fair to him.
Dan,
he makes those mistakes,
let me get in here really quick.
Against them.
Yeah, because Nick, sorry to cut you off there. Speaking of Carson Wentz, I want to ask you this. Who do you think is in a better situation? Do you think it's Carson now being in Washington? Because I think I remember you had Washington winning the division. Obviously, we know it's the NFC least. Or do you think now it's Matt Ryan in Indy?
Yeah, I think it's Matt Ryan in Indy, honestly. I think that Carson Wentz's situation is good, but I think that Carson Wentz has been so many places, and even here, it's not too many people. I live in D.C. There's not a lot of excitement about having Carson Wentz. And I think that's part of the problem. It's the baggage that Carson Wentz brings along with him. So he's going to have to come up big in some big moments and do it consistently for people to think differently about him. But I do think that what they have in Indianapolis, they have something on their offense they can build around. They have a dominant rushing attack, and they have a really good front seven on the defensive side of the ball. Those are things you can build around. I don't know that that's the same thing in Washington, especially with the injuries that they had to Chase Young, and understanding that there's one running back in this league that is as good, I think, as Jonathan Taylor, and that's a healthy Derrick Henry. So I think that situation in Indianapolis is a little bit more attractive for more attractive for Matt Ryan than Carson Wentz in Washington.
Yeah, I would probably agree with Dom that it's probably better in Indy. You know, obviously I think that they have to answer some of those questions on their team that I pointed out. You know, Molly, something that we don't like, it's so difficult to really talk about on television. It's also difficult to try to like quantify and figure out is, I think that the basic difference, and Dom made this point, is Indy has like an adult now at quarterback. Like they just have, I don't want to like, maybe that's not the best phrasing, but they got a ice in his veins leader, like a guy that is every day he will walk into that locker room and be a leader of men. And that is not easy to do. And sometimes you pay guys strictly to be able to do that. And I think that the more you hear and the more you find out, that's probably where Carson has some of his biggest lapses is like having that daily ability to go in and do that. Right. I don't know if he's going to be able to change that in a year. And I don't know if that's going to be something that he personality-wise is going to be able to really wrap his arms around and make it a strength. Because right now it seems the more you hear about the situations in Philly and in Indy, and we can't get kind of information on that, the more it sounds like a weakness. And I would tell you that talent-wise, I would say Carson Wentz in Washington with Terry McLaurin and Curtis Samuel and Antonio, I'd tell you that. But I think with the whole totality of the importance of playing quarterback and the leadership role of it, I think it's probably Matt Ryan in Indy.
Dan, do you agree with Neek, though, that Wentz could potentially still be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL? Yeah,
I do. I think that performance-wise, I think that Carson Wentz has proven that he is a top 10, top 12 player at the position. But he will always have to, or certainly for the next couple of years, answer the question, can you be relied on in the most important moments? And are you going to do something stupid with the football when our team needs you least to do it, so to speak? And I think
it feels like it's all psychological. Go ahead, Neek.
Right. I mean, I disagree with Neek. If we thought that Neek said that he was going to be a top 10 quarterback, then Neek is dead ass wrong.
Oh, Neek, hold on, time out. Neek, I'm so sorry. It's Frank Reich who said that. Frank Reich said he could be a top 10, and I put it on you. That's my bad. Breaking news. That was not Dominique Foxworth. That was his coach
top 15, though?
saying that he could be top 10. I apologize, Neek.
Sure.
Sorry, clean that up.
Yeah, I think he'll be top 15. He's as talented as just about anybody in the league. But the problem is, as consistently as he shows those big-time great plays, frankly, more consistently, he shows the bad decisions, and they happen at the worst times. And that's not something that I think goes away. We learned from Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers that you can throw for a ton of touchdowns and not turn the ball over a bunch. Those are kind of the guys that are able to do that. So you don't have to take the bad with the good. And it seems like with Carson Wentz, no matter what, no matter how good a stretch of football he's playing, at any moment, and sadly at the big moments, he's going to do something. And you're going to be like, what the hell was he thinking? And that's the problem. You can't make it through an entire season like that, and particularly in the playoffs. Like, you're not going to be able to make a deep run in the playoffs when you have a quarterback that and that affects the rest of the team. Back to the psychological point. Everyone on your team, everyone in the stadium, everyone on the defense is like, we can't make a mistake because who knows what that guy's going to do. The guys on the offense like, man, who knows what he's going to do at this moment. So that's a tough thing to carry around. It's going to take him a couple of years to shake that reputation.
All right, we're up against it. Got to leave it there, guys. Still to come here on First Take, Tyreek Hill gave the
to do. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. First Take starts now.
Irving zipping, couldn't finish it. Misses again. Wow, he is just short on everything tonight.
Basically, none of the things I had hoped for going well tonight just didn't happen. But I'm grateful that I got a chance to be out there with my brothers. Grateful that we were part of history tonight.
Good day. What's going on, everybody? Welcome into First Take. Thank you for being with us. My guys, Tim Legler, Big Perk, Kendrick Perkins. Gentlemen, how we feeling this morning?
What's going on, Molly? What's up, Legs?
Wonderful. What's up?
Good, because we got a whole lot to get into. Gentlemen, what a weekend it was in sports. Let's get right to it. And I want to start just across the bridge in BK. You know where I'm going. Kyrie Irving made his home debut Sunday night during a 119-110 loss to the Charlotte Hornets, making it clear that he believes his presence on the court represents something much bigger than basketball. New York City Mayor Eric Adams rolled back the mandate last week. For athletes and performers that are unvaccinated, they can perform in New York. Irving received a huge ovation from the sold-out crowd. Gentlemen, this was the largest in Barclays Center history, 18,000 plus, but Kyrie struggled to find a rhythm, finishing just 6 for 22 from the field in almost 41 minutes. He had 16 points and 11 assists, but was just 1 for 9 from beyond the arc. Here's Kyrie Irving on where Brooklyn currently stands.
We know where we are in the standings, and we also know how much talent we have in that locker room and what we're capable of doing. So though this may look like a loss that could have easily been a win column for us, we'll just take our bumps and bruises and move forward.
Meanwhile, gentlemen, the Suns pulled away late to beat the Sixers 114-104. Devin Booker had 35 points. Joel Embiid had 37 points, 15 rebounds, but the better team was the Suns. Phoenix extending their win streak to 8. Philly now 4th in the East. Perk, who has more at stake come playoff time? Is it Brooklyn or Philly?
Well, Molly, when you think of Brooklyn, right, you think of two people, Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant.
Absolutely.
And when you think of Philly, you think of James Harden and Joel Embiid. Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant both already have championships. They won their rings. So when you think about the 76ers, Joel Embiid, and especially James Harden, are trying to accomplish what Kyrie and KD already have. So I have to go with the 76ers for the simple fact that we're watching James Harden right now. And to me, I don't know how much longer we're going to be able to see a James Harden that could go out there and consistently get you 25 to 30 points a night. I think his game is slowly on the decline. I'm not counting him out just yet, but look, he left the Brooklyn Nets to go to Philly, to go team up with Joel Embiid to win a championship. So with both of those guys starving for a ring, it's the Philadelphia 76ers that have more at stake. And then again, guess what? James Harden is a free agent after this season. So if things don't work out, we have witnessed over the past 2 years that James Harden don't have a problem with leaving.
No, I hear you, Perk, but here's where I'm going to disagree with you. So when I look at Brooklyn, I say to myself, this was put together 2 years ago, and the very day that they paired up, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden, this team was supposed to have getting ready for their second championship by now. It's a very good chance they get bounced in the play-in, or at best case, they lose a first-round series this year. That's going to be 2 consecutive seasons. They're not even close to that goal. When I look at Philadelphia, Going into the season, this was not a championship contender with Ben Simmons. They certainly weren't without him because they didn't replace him with anything. So, okay, they go get James Harden, and I understand what you're saying. Neither one of their two stars have checked that box yet. So I get it. There is a sense of urgency that they want to go ahead and get that done. But at the same time, James Harden joined the team, with 2/3 of the season already gone. He is not the same player that he was in Houston. And it's obvious physically when you watch him, his inability to win that matchup in front of him and beat that first defender and put him in his rearview mirror, which is really what his entire game is predicated on. That's not quite the same. And I saw some numbers this morning that were great. His blow-by rate has dropped down to mediocre level by NBA standards, where he was in the 90th percentile of winning that matchup. So your point about what he looks like is valid. I'm just saying they haven't been together that long, and he is not the same player. So I just don't think it's quite as fair to put those level of expectations on those guys after being together such a short time when you look at what Brooklyn did 2 years ago, and they might be 2 years in, not even coming close to that goal.
No, but Legs, see, that's to me, I think James Harden is the reason why the expectations for Philly has to be high for the Nets and they have more at stake. Because of what James Harden has done over the past 2 years, forcing his way out of Houston, going to Brooklyn, preaching about scary hours, and then all of a sudden you choose to leave Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving and say, I want to go to Philly. I want to go to Philly. James Harden, the only thing he has left to accomplish is actually winning the championship. That's the only thing he actually really needs to accomplish. He has stacked up every individual accolade you possibly could imagine offensively. Not no defensive player accolades. I'm talking about on the offensive end. But when you look at it, he is the one, right? He's almost out of his prime. He knows he needs to win a championship. And when you choose to leave Kevin Durant, who's arguably the best basketball player in the game today, and go to Philly, force your way out? Nah, I gotta say he has the most at stake along with the Philadelphia 76ers.
Look, I think there's two different points being made. I think you're dead right on the James Harden one, because I think when you look at the four players we're talking about, the four stars involved in these two teams, there is no question that James Harden still has the most to prove. Because you look at what he did in Houston, and he ran an offense that was unprecedented. In NBA history, there's never been an offense that was that ball dominant with one player. The way that he orchestrated things in Houston, year after year after year, good teams had a chance, came up short, whether it was his own play or injuries or teammates' injuries, whatever it was, they always came up short. So nobody has more pressure amongst the four than James Harden. But when you talk about the team, I got to still stick with Brooklyn, because everybody expected the day that those three guys came together. I know James Harden's not there anymore, but I'm talking about the grand plan that was hatched with that organization, bringing in Steve Nash, getting these three guys to play together. They thought they're going to be working on their second parade route. They haven't come close to that. Now, injuries have played a part, but that doesn't matter. NBA doesn't care. There's no sympathy for teams that get hurt. For me, the fact that they could be 2 years into this and they have not even reached a final, which is probably not going to happen this year with the way they play defense, to me, that's the bigger disappointment than Philadelphia potentially not getting there right now with Joel Embiid and a James Harden that is a reduced version, clearly, of what he was in Houston.
Well, Legs, let me ask you a question. If the Nets don't achieve, or just say they don't make it to the finals or the Eastern Conference Finals, or say they underachieve, and say Philly underachieve, who would get criticized the most?
I think James Harden individually, honestly, he would get more of the heat from this, even more so than the respective teams, or even in the case of Philadelphia, Doc Rivers is going to have a lot to answer for if this doesn't go right. I think Joel Embiid will probably be off the hook. I think he's going to put up great numbers whether they lose a series or not. I think Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving are going to put up numbers whether they lose or not. James Harden's iffy, and James Harden was the guy that basically handpicked where he wanted to go and forced his way out. So for me, it's going to fall at his feet. But I'm looking at them, and you got to be realistic about this. When James Harden jumped on that Acela Express from Brooklyn and jumped down to Philadelphia, 30th Street Station, and I've been on that train many, many times. When he got off that train, people had great expectations. But when you really look at him physically, night to night, there's so many reasons to be concerned now. And I was as hopeful as anybody. I thought maybe that was going to put him over the top. But when I watch him every night, and last night was a great example, you just look at him and you say, man, this is not the same guy physically. And if he's not, he doesn't have the ability to beat you from the perimeter. He has to beat you from the paint, at the rim, and at the line. He is really struggling to do that right now, Perk. So I'm just saying the reality of it is he's not the player that he needs to be right now to be able to make it a realistic expectation that they get through and win a championship. And that's why, for me, I've already kind of looked at them differently than I did the day that he ended up in Philadelphia.
Perk, last word here.
And guess what, Legs? I don't disagree with you one bit. He doesn't look like the James Harden of old. But at the end of the day, none of us are trying to hear that. You forced your way and you left KD and Kyrie and you went to Philly. And by the way, Molly, hey, look, This is my first time on First Take with Legs, and I had to hand him his first L.
I'll leave that up to the folks at home. Hey, gentlemen, a lot of Philly and Brooklyn.
Judge and jury. You can't be judge and jury, Perk.
Please. Gentlemen, but you know who's saying not so fast? That would be the Celtics. Irish eyes are smiling. Don't look now. Boston Celtics are first in a loaded East after beating the T-Wolves last night. Boston on a 6-game win streak and just thriving. As for their longtime rival, the Lakers, this is not their year, but it is LeBron's who continues to dominate as a scorer. Despite the King putting up 39, 9, and 5, the purple and gold blow a 23-point lead versus the Pelicans and drop to 10th in the standings, now at risk of missing the play-in. LeBron, 10th in the West. How you feeling?
It feels like, I mean, excuse my language, but that's what it feels like. You know, I came in with the mindset, understanding it was a playoff type, it was going to be playoff type atmosphere, playoff implications and things of that nature. So, I knew that from the jump. We also got a lot of guys on our ball club that haven't played in playoff games as well. That plays a lot of big minutes for us. It feels like a wasted opportunity, obviously, for myself and for our team, and we weren't able to get it done.
Listen to this. The mighty have fallen. Of the teams in the West most likely to be in the play-in tournament, the Lakers now have the lowest chance to make it. That according to our analytics here at ESPN. The Spurs are only 1 game behind Los Angeles for 10th and hold the conference tiebreaker at the moment. Perk, you didn't know this, but I grew up with a diehard Celtics fan, my father, because you grew up in Connecticut, and you guys used to come play at the Hartford Civic Center a few times a year. Yes, it was actually Celtics, Yankees, Giants. Yes, sir. So now I'm rooting for the Celtics just so I could take my dad to a game. Tell me this, bigger headline, that Boston is first in the East or the Lakers are 10th in the West?
You know what? I'm going to leave the Celtics to Legs. I feel like he going to go that way. I cannot let the Lakers off the hook. I will not let the Lakers off the hook. And I know I've been telling y'all I'm tired of talking about them, and I really am. But the fact of the matter is this. If the Lakers, forget the title run, being a title contender, forget, making noise in the playoffs. If the Lakers miss the playoffs, which they have a strong possibility of doing, they could be one of the biggest disappointments in NBA history. Period. It's no way around it. We're not talking about them making a run. We're actually talking about them missing the playoffs. With the addition of the play-in tournament, if they can't get into the play-in tournament and make the playoffs, I don't want to hear nothing. I want to give the Celtics all the credit in the world, but I refuse to let the Lakers off the hook. Not with this team, how it was assembled in the offseason, all the future Hall of Famers that came together, LeBron, Melo, Russ, and all this, and all the jibber-jab, keep the same energy about these old heads when the season turn around. I don't want to hear nothing. If the Lakers don't make the playoffs, it will be one of the biggest disappointments in NBA history, period.
Listen, I think you're right on it, Perk. Look, here's the deal. Molly, you asked the question, what's the bigger headline? Well, the bigger headline is about the Lakers because LeBron James is still on that roster, and you're talking about a team that potentially could be sitting at home when the playoffs start watching on television, okay? But the better story is clearly the Boston Celtics because go back to the beginning of the season, and look, they made a coaching change in the offseason. Ime Udoka came in, and a lot of people believed that he was going to be a rising star in this profession. But we didn't know that, 2 months in. You were still looking at this team saying, I see a lot of the same things that I saw the last couple of years when I felt like they were ISO dominant. I felt like they make a lot of tough 2-point shots between their star forwards. I didn't see a big change, but it goes to show you, it takes time for a coach to really put his stamp on a team. And now you look up, and this team has gone 22-3 in their last 25 games. All right, this is a team now that has become one of the top defensive teams in the NBA. And here's what's most important. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum have been together a long time now. This is by far the best offense they have played at the same time since they have been teammates. That is a scary proposition for the rest of the league because you're talking about 2 star forwards with length. They can shoot the ball from deep, mid-range, and get to the rim. So they can beat you on every platform, and they're doing it on the same night. It used to be my turn, your turn type of offense with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Now it's pretty much every night. You can dial in 50 on a bad night, 70 on a good night for these 2 players. And then what's most important for me, what about the supporting cast? They're getting great defensive protection from Robert Williams, who's finishing everything. They're getting great guard play off the bench with Derek White and Peyton Pritchard. Tice was a great addition to bring back to Boston where he's been most comfortable. Al Horford, a veteran voice in the leadership. You know what you're getting with Marcus Smart every night. So now you look at them, and it's primarily because the efficiency of Tatum and Brown has gone to a different place than it ever was before. This is a legitimate championship contender. And if you asked anybody 2 months into the season, you wouldn't have found one person that would have made that statement about the Boston Celtics. And yet here we are with the potential to host every single round in the Eastern Conference playoffs. Unthinkable even 2 months ago.
Legs, I was one of them. Listen, I was saying break them up. Okay, break them up. And you know how I am with the Boston fan base and how I am with the Boston organization. It has been an emotional roller coaster. Look, let me point this out to the people out there. At one point of the season, the Celtics record was 23-24. 23-24. They were 1 game below 500. And all of a sudden, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum had a coming to Jesus meeting. They had a coming to Jesus meeting outside of basketball. And so the connection started being there, the chemistry, the togetherness. And look, we sitting up here talking about Devin Booker, and rightfully so, entering the MVP conversation. Well, I tell you what, Jason Tatum should be in the MVP conversation as well. I'm not saying he should be the front runner, but his name should be mentioned because he's on everybody's heels like a pair of church socks right now, squeezing them. And for the simple fact that he has the Celtics at the #1 seed in the best conference, that speaks volumes. But I'm with you, Legs, but I just couldn't let the Lakers off the hook. I refuse to let them off the hook.
No, hey, look, I don't blame you. And look, my final thought on the Celtics is this. For people that have not been watching them every night, if you're just looking at the standings now and you're an NBA fan, you wake up one day and you go, wow, man, the Boston Celtics #1, how's that happening? Just watch them play and you get a better feel. Look, there are 5 teams, and I'm including Brooklyn in it because they've got Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. You can't exclude them from title talk. So there's 5 teams in the East. When you look at those 5 teams, the only 2 that really have their act together right now are Milwaukee and Boston. Miami couldn't be playing any worse. We just talked about James Harden and how he looks physically, and obviously with what Brooklyn is going to have to do potentially coming out of a play-in, and you don't even know if you're going to get Ben Simmons at any point. Those 3 teams have a lot of things to figure out at the wrong time of the year. Boston and Milwaukee clearly right now playing a different level of basketball than everybody else in the East.
No, and the East obviously wide open, and it's great here at ESPN. We have the Eastern Conference Finals. I can't wait. But I want to go back to what you brought up in Tatum and Brown. What would you say, Perk? Where do they rank amongst the best tandems in the NBA right now? Because we've hyped a lot of other duos.
Well, they're top five. They're top five. And I feel like Jaylen Brown, he flies under the radar. Like, and this is the reason why he got named Jaylen Underappreciated Brown, is because we don't appreciate what he's doing. Like, this guy's averaging 24, and you know the great thing about it is that now he has taken a backseat to Jason Tatum, and he's okay with it. But when you look at these two young studs, these guys that's not even 25 years of age, they're a top 5 duo in this league. I don't know where they fall, but I know they top 5. I don't know if they number 3. I don't know if it's number 4. Again, like I told you before, Molly, it's whatever your preference is. If you want to drink hen or you want to drink Ciroc, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown both will get you drunk, okay?
No, Big Perk, I'm with you. I'm just drinking water. Just water and cardio right now. Legs, where are you on this?
No, he's 100% right. Like I always say, look, do you like steak or you like sushi? I like them both. So I'm going to order both, all right? And that's what you get with them. And look, here's the thing about these two guys. As good as they have been, not good, they've been exceptional over this stretch. Here's the key. They are going to now have to do the same thing and navigate their way through the postseason, okay? So because it's going to leave you with an empty feeling if they play this well for this long and they finish the season this way. By the way, they're not just beating people right now. They are smoking people right now. They have as many 30-point wins during this stretch as they do losses total. That's how dominant they have been. But now you've got to make sure that translates to the postseason when, here's what's going to happen. Teams get one team to focus on. It's the Boston Celtics. So now there's all kinds of defensive adjustments that are going to be thrown their way. Can they beat you as a facilitator? Because they're going to see more double teams, more coordinated defensive schemes because they only have to worry about 2 players. So can you handle that? Can you beat somebody as a passer if that's what the situation requires? Can you make a tough contested shot late in a game, in a one-possession game, in a series-defining moment? So there are still a lot that they've got to accomplish. But right now, I'm with Perk. You got to put them in the top 5, but you got to also wait and see what they do in the postseason. They've got to be able to navigate the pressure moments against the teams that they're going to have to go up against. Or after all of this, we're going to have an empty feeling in the summer, I think, about what they just accomplished.
No question. But, Perk, I understand that playoff basketball is a different deal, and Legs named about 5 teams. We get that the East is wide open. But right now, if you had to pick, would you say Boston is the favorite out of the East?
I have to, Molly. I mean, they have the best starting 5 in basketball, and you could go look at the numbers. I mean, when you talk about offensively and defensively, what they've been doing over the past couple of months, no other team in basketball, including the Phoenix Suns, has been doing what the Boston Celtics has done. But I will say this. To those top teams that are in the Eastern Conference, and Legs, you just pointed to this point. It's a great point. The Brooklyn Nets, they're going to make the playoffs, whether it's the 8th seed or the 7th seed. Here is the thing. If you that number 1 seed or number 2 seed, I don't really know if the Brooklyn Nets is that team that you want to see in the first round going against Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. You know what I mean? I'm just putting that out there because it's there to think about. And if I'm a coach, I'm thinking about those situations. I'm trying to see where I'm stacking up, who I'm going to play against, how I'm going to play against. You know, I don't really know if I want to see Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving in the first round.
Now, listen, all you need to know about that statement is what happened when the Brooklyn Nets went into Philadelphia on March 10th in a game that had as much drama surrounding it as any regular season game you're going to see. And guess what? Those 2 dudes ran to the light. Everybody else shrunk because it was too much for them. It was not too much for those guys. Those guys thrive on those situations. And so you're 100% right. They're going to have a legitimate shot if those 2 guys take the court. But here's, to answer Molly's question, I'm still going to lean right now to the Milwaukee Bucks. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt because of what they did last year. They broke through something mentally that they really needed to have happen. And obviously Giannis did it. He played the greatest game of his life in the most important moment of his life. Very few guys can say that they're able to do that. They had disappointments 2 years prior as a number 1 seed, getting bounced, felt disappointing. They come back last year, they kind of flew under the radar in the regular season. They weren't really putting their foot on the gas. They just wanted to be healthy when the postseason started. They added Jrue Holiday, and boom, they're NBA champions. they've kind of approached this season the same way. They've had some injuries. They haven't really worried about seeding. They're just sort of laying in the grass waiting. But now that I know they can navigate those pressure moments and Giannis Antetokounmpo can make important free throws when he has to, things like that, I'm going to still give them the benefit of the doubt. I think they've earned that right. But there is no question Boston now has played themselves into a situation where you expect to see them at minimum in the conference finals.
It's absolutely unbelievable. All right, Perk and Legs will be back. We'll have much more on the pros in April, but now I need to get to the college kids getting it done in March. Final Four talk.
The Coach K farewell tour has one more stop. And for the first time, the Duke Blue Devils will take on North Carolina in an NCAA tournament.
Villanova has survived and advanced. The only number one seed left, the Kansas Jayhawks, headed to their Final Four.
We're not done yet.
Feels great to be going back told.
It's not a hope, it's not a dream anymore, it's a reality. Let's go to New Orleans.
The Final Four is filled with some elite programs, with this year's group combining for 17 national titles. Of the four, Duke, the favorite to win it all, but they'll have to go through rival UNC, who they never met in the tourney. The coach, Seth Greenberg, joining us now. Seth, thank you so much for being with us this morning. How we doing?
Doing great, Molly. How you doing?
I'm good. This is exciting, Coach. It doesn't get any better than this. Duke and Coach K's final run versus North Carolina. Of all teams, Hollywood couldn't script it any better. But, Coach, should Duke be the favorites to win it all, in your opinion?
Yeah, they should be the favorites because of how they're playing right now. They're playing better than anyone else. Why are they playing better than anyone else? Think about this. 52% of their points are being scored in the paint. They're playing downhill. They're not settling. They're shooting 70% from the paint, which is absolutely ridiculous. 41 points a game. Why are they doing that? Because you know what? Paolo Banchero's not settling. Jeremy Roach is giving them a burst in transition. You talk about what they're doing defensively, their ability to keep the ball in front, contest shots. And Mark Williams has not been good. He's been absolutely phenomenal protecting the front of the rim. Almost 4 blocked shots a game. And then finally, the last thing they have to do at the end of the game is they've got to close out games. In the last 5 minutes of games, they've been not good. They've been great. So when I look at these 4 teams, all 4 teams have had incredible journeys to the Final Four. Duke is playing their best basketball at the right time, and the burden of Coach K's last season has not been an issue in the NCAA tournament.
No question. It kind of feels like it's lining up when we're talking about this Hollywood script for Coach K, Coach. But UNC did beat Duke in Coach K's final game at Cameron Indoor. We all saw that. How do the Tar Heels stack up against the Blue Devils?
They stack up well. First of all, North Carolina right now, since in the last 11 games, are only allowing about 66 points a game. So they're really defending at a high level. They're competing at a high level. But look at the makeup of this team, Molly. And you look at the makeup of this team. They put the ball in R.J. Davis's hands. What does he do? He kind of orchestrates. He's their play starter. Caleb Love, he had 27 points in the second half against UCLA. Armando Bacot, he's had 29 double-doubles. Brady Manek knocks down big shots, and Leaky Black is an elite defender. To me, I look at North Carolina, they're playing their very best basketball. They've got great trust in each other. Hubert Davis has not done a good job. He's done a great job leading this team, navigating the season, navigating the slow start to the season. So Carolina, I could see a way that they can win. Look, they rolled into Cameron Indoor Stadium on Coach K's senior night.
Yes.
And absolutely not only won the game, but closed out the game in the last 5 minutes. So could Carolina win? Yes, they could win. Do I think Duke is better right now in this moment in time? Yes, I do.
Yeah, Jay Will was here before finishing up his show. He said this is the biggest game in tournament history, all hyped up for it. We all are, but it's not just about the Blue Bloods. We love the Cinderella stories as well. St. Peter's, come on, Coach, you love this. Defying the odds, making it to the Elite Eight. What is the significance of their run? And shout out to Coach Holloway.
What the significance is, if you think about it, one, how did they get their identity? Their style of play obviously disrupted a Kentucky, a Purdue, a Murray State that was playing as well as anyone in the country. What it does, it gives hope. It gives hope to the little guys. But you know what it also does? It puts pressure on every mid-major coach and every small major coach, because every AD is walking into their coach right now going, why can't we be St. Pete?
Yeah.
If they can get to the Elite Eight, what are we doing wrong? So It's been an unbelievable story. The joy that they brought to that community, to that league, the exposure they've gotten has been great. And the way they play winning basketball. But how they won, I think the best lesson that anyone could learn from this is it's okay to be different. Because the identity of how they played is the reason they got where they got. And now Shaheen Holloway's on his way to Seton Hall.
Yeah, we knew that was coming, right? Let's get to the other matchup. Huge blow for Villanova, though, Coach. Guard Justin Moore tearing his Achilles. He's second in points and assists for the team. How is that going to impact their matchup versus Kansas?
It's a huge loss. He's their best defender. He rebounds from the guard position. They can back him down. He makes big shots. He's got a toughness and experience. Now, what's going to happen is Caleb Daniels is going to slide into that spot, and that's great. The problem is Caleb Daniels, all right, if you think about it, he plays 78% of the bench minutes for this Villanova team, so they have no depth. So what are they going to have to do? They're going to have to slow the pace of the game down. They're going to have to make the game a crawl. No one can get in foul trouble. They got to keep the game in front, but losing Justin Moore is a huge loss because he's their second leading scorer. He's got a physicality to him. He's got experience. He's got toughness. He's an elite defender. But Villanova has a way to win this game. Own the tempo of the game, stay out of foul trouble. All right, and most importantly, when you're Villanova, you're playing inside out on those kick-out threes. 46% of the shots come from the three-point line. They're knocking down threes. There's a way for them to figure out a way to win this game, but they got to slow down the transition game of Kansas.
All right, Coach, give it to me. Predictions. Where are we going here?
Kansas and Duke right now. I could change that later in the week, but right now, looking at the game.
It's fluid, like Stephen A. says. So
yeah, exactly.
It's
fluid.
Flexible. It's fluid.
I mean, it's Monday, but I love the way Kansas closed out their game the other day. The second half, they were dominant defensively. They've got more ways to beat you. They've got greater depth. They can play inside through McCormick. Obviously, Ochai Agbaji is very special. Then just look, nothing against North Carolina. I'm not disrespecting Hubert Davis. I'm not disrespecting North Carolina. It's just really how Duke is playing right now. They're playing on both sides of the floor. They're defending. They're efficient. They're playing downhill. Banchero has been his very best in the NCAA tournament. But Jeremy Roach has been his very best, playing 35 minutes a game and making the good decisions. So right now, Monday, I'd say it's Duke and Kansas.
Okay,
that
we'll check back in with you later, though.
Yeah, and Jay Will is correct. Duke and Carolina is always obviously the biggest game in college basketball, gets the best ratings. Duke and Carolina with a chance to win a national championship. Duke and Carolina, Act 3. Duke and Carolina, potentially Coach K's last game. Duke and Carolina with Coach K having a chance to win a 6th national championship. Come on now, that's just
doesn't get bigger.
Duke, Carolina with people in the stands,
right? Can you imagine what those tickets are going to cost? It's going to be unbelievable.
My goodness,
unreal.
It's going to be a bigger event than the Final Four has ever been because of that matchup.
For sure. Coach, you're the best. We'll talk to you later this week. Thank you so much. The NBA between the Sixers and the Suns, and all Phoenix did is what they've done all season long. Ended up with the victory at the end. Behind 35 points from Devin Booker, the Suns beat the Sixers 114-104 to advance to an NBA best 61-14. It was a night to forget for James Harden, who scored just 14 points on 2 of 11 shooting. Here's Harden on what went wrong.
I think we had a pretty solid game. We didn't finish the game how we needed to. Mental lapses, defensive breakdowns, offensively being stagnant and not getting really good possessions, and they capitalized. So tough one, but it's just definitely a learning experience. Let me go back home.
Tim Legler, Kendrick Perkins back here with me. Perk, who's got a tougher path to the finals, the Suns or the Sixers?
Oh, it's the 76ers. I mean, look. The 76ers are in a better conference, right? It's more competition. It's about 5 teams that we could sit up here and make a legitimate argument about that could come out of the East. When you think about the Celtics, the Bucks, the Miami Heat, although they're not playing well, you still can't count them out. You could look at even the Brooklyn Nets and even the Chicago Bulls at a certain extent if they get healthy. But when you look at the West, right? And you look at the Phoenix Suns, I'm looking at only one team that could be standing in their way, and that's the Memphis Grizzlies. Any other team that the Phoenix Suns could go against, they're going to win that series in 5 games. Whether it's the Utah Jazz, the Dallas Mavericks, the Denver Nuggets, the Timberwolves, whoever you put in front of them, they're going to beat them in 5 games. So when I look at the 2 conferences and I look at who has the tougher task, I'm going with the 76ers.
Listen, Perk, you make a very compelling argument. All right, but there's one team you left out. I'm going to get to them in a minute. Let's start first with the Philadelphia 76ers. Listen, we already talked about Harden's issues, so this is a big reach in saying that James Harden needs to be great for this team to make a legitimate run at the finals. But let's assuming that he is much better than he has been at nights since he got to Philadelphia. When you look at the teams in the Eastern Conference, yeah, they're going to have their work cut out for them, and I don't know they're going to be favored in any series except probably the first round when they're most likely going to get Chicago. They'll be favored in that series. After that, I understand they won't be favored, but I do feel like when Harden plays well, I feel like Philadelphia can lay a legitimate claim to having the two most dominant offensive players in the conference if he is on his game. So that, to me, gives them a legitimate shot against any of those teams, Milwaukee, Miami, Boston, any of those teams. But when I look at Phoenix, clearly the best team in the NBA, there's one team you didn't mention that I still feel like has the potential when they get that baby-faced assassin back, Steph Curry. Listen to me. Listen to me now. Let me finish. That team still has the potential to end up being the best team in the NBA. I believe that. Now, here's what been the blessing since Steph Curry has gone out. They've been waiting. Is Klay Thompson going to find himself this season, or is it going to take a whole nother offseason after that long layoff for him to come back? Well, if you take a look at what Klay Thompson is doing lately, last 9 games, he's had 6 20-point games. He's had 2 30-point games. Klay Thompson, and most importantly, he's playing starters minutes again, 34, 35 minutes a night. So Klay Thompson is back. Draymond Green had a long layoff, so he is going to get better here over the last 2 weeks with his conditioning and his wind. But we know his impact won't be felt truly until Steph Curry takes the court. And Steph Curry is going to be back and rested when the postseason comes. And if you remember a year ago, Steph Curry had some time off with an injury, came back before April, and got on an incredible run to close out the season. So Steph Curry being fresh is the best thing Golden State can hope for. So I still think that's the one team that when they click, can still be the team that upsets the Phoenix Suns. And that's why I think for Phoenix, that's bad news for them, that they still have that one team lurking out there that has not been whole all year, Perk. And that's why I think for Phoenix, it could be a tougher path because you're still going to have to get through either Memphis or Golden State.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Legs, and this is why I challenge you at. When are they going to click? That's the question. When is Golden State going to click? We keep saying when they get healthy, it's less than 10 games left in the season, right? So at some point, you got to find some type of continuity, some type of chemistry, some type of roles, guys being stars in their roles. They just announced that James Wiseman is not coming back. How is Kuminga going to play? Draymond Green, yes, he has to get in shape, but he doesn't really look healthy right now. I don't really know if Draymond Green is going to be 100% throughout the playoffs. Hell, I don't know if Steph Curry is going to be 100% throughout the playoffs. And yes, we talked about Klay Thompson and his 20-point games, and he has looked special on the offensive end. But can Klay Thompson come back to being that two-way player again? Can he provide that same defense that he did and play both ends of the floor? It's a lot of question marks over there right now for the Golden State Warriors. And when I look at Phoenix, if they was to match up with them, I wouldn't see that series if the Golden State Warriors had everybody going past 6, just because the Phoenix Suns are rolling at the right time. But when you go to the East, and you talk about a team that you had favored in the Eastern Conference, the Milwaukee Bucks, the defending champions, right? The Philadelphia 76ers. You still got to prove to them. We talk about James Harden struggling. Who do the Bucks have right now that could guard James Harden? I tell you, Drew Holiday. One of, if not the best perimeter defenders in the game today. We saw what he did last year to Devin Booker and CP3 in the finals when he took on the task of shutting them down. So when I think about the East, I think about how the Celtics are balling, how they look defensively. And Legs, you just said it. You said if James Harden get back to being special, but can James Harden really get back to being special? Like, can he really get back to that? Like, I don't know.
Listen, that's a fair question, but here's the one thing I'll say about Philadelphia. Any series they play, they've got the guy on their team that has been the best player in the Eastern Conference this year. I think you would agree with that because I think Joel Embiid or Nikola Jokic, one of those two guys is going to win MVP. So Joel Embiid can lay claim. He's been the best player in the conference this year. So every time you take the floor in the Eastern Conference playoffs, you have that guy on your team, which is going to give you more than just a chance. So look, a lot of this is revolving around James Harden, and you almost have to suspend a little bit what you've seen, right? Not believe your eyes and believe what you still think James Harden might have in him. And look, like I said, Perk, that might be a huge reach at this point, and it might be that he gets into one of these series and he has one of those series where he can't make a shot from the perimeter, he's not getting calls, and Philadelphia goes home early. That's very possible. But you still have Embiid running out of the tunnel every night. When I look at the West, I know that, look, Golden State has looked like a reenactment of the Civil War, right? The way that they've had one guy in, one guy out all year long. Like, these guys are limping home. They're limping home. They got the bandages around their heads. They got the old crutches they used to have in the Civil War photos. That's what they look like. I understand that. But they are getting back to for the first time all year, when Steph comes back, they're going to be whole for the first time all season. And that's why I still think Golden State represents a serious challenge to Phoenix.
Yeah, can't count him out at all. All right, we'll leave it there. You two will be back, but I got someone out of a very quick retirement to return for his 23rd season. Unreal. The Buccaneers are certainly happy, but there's one person that doesn't seem to be. Peyton Manning recently joked about Brady saying this: I want the letter back. You got to read all these nice things. I want it back. I want the bottle of wine back too. Neek, I need your thoughts here. Peyton Manning, by the way, hysterical.
I mean, if you're going to come back to play, I think I'm on Peyton Manning's side. I suspect this is a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but I'm serious. I want it all back. All the days that we spent on here talking about how you're the greatest of all time and your career was so amazing.
Very emotional.
I want my time back. Yeah, we were all upset and whining about how we'll never see you play again. Then you just decide to up and come back. Like, that, to me, feels unfair. Send the wine back. For real. I'm sure it's expensive.
It's so funny. I love it. Okay, another thing I want to get your thoughts on was the Oscars. So it's the slap that had everyone talking last night. Obviously, after Chris Rock made a joke, and that was targeted at his wife, Jada, Smith approached the stage and slapped Rock across the face. The slap drew strong reaction across social media, including from our very own Stephen A. Smith, tweeting this: didn't know until this moment about Jada having alopecia. She's wonderful and great. So is Will Smith, which we all know. They're both phenomenal. But you do not do what Will did in that setting. Go backstage and handle that if you must. Horrible look. First, let me say, him playing Richard Williams really quick. I know it's not about that, but I don't know if you saw the movie. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I saw it.
That was an incredible movie. But Neek, now to the slap. What was your take on that whole situation?
I thought the movie was mediocre, but that's a whole other debate that we can have. Like, I mean, it was all right. It was all right. I mean, if you're going to give Will an Oscar, it ain't for that one. But anyway, I mean,
carry on.
The joke wasn't even that good. Like, I mean, I've never been slapped like that, but I would have liked it to be for a much better joke. Like, it was a dated joke. And I mean, I hate to be like, have too much fun with this because like our group chats and Twitter is on fire, but like being on TV is a whole different ball of wax. And who knows what's going on in Will Smith's mind to do something like that, because that's certainly out of the realm of possibility, but I guess it's not anymore. So I know I used to say all the time that I'm comfortable with free speech as long as you are comfortable with the repercussions of that free speech. And this feels like it fits into that same category. So I was shocked that it happened. I'm still in shock, but I'm not quite sure how to react.
Nick, let me say this. Obviously, his wife dealing with alopecia. You know, it's very serious. You're dealing with health issues. You're feeling a lot of stress. And then he's making fun of your wife, and in that moment, and you see Jada's reaction, I don't know if I'm the only person that feels this way, but it didn't bother me. I was just like, Will has his wife's back. Like, he loves his wife so much, and in that moment, that's just how he reacted.
Yeah, I woke up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, checked at my phone, and saw Will Smith slaps Chris Rock. So I'm thinking this is a joke. And then I watched the video, and I was just stunned. Like, it's something I had never anticipated could possibly happen, and especially over a joke. It seems like I feel you on the defending part, but it feels like an overreaction.
I just feel like it wasn't necessarily over a joke. We're out of time,
I won't make no
unfortunately.
jokes to you, Molly. I don't want
You
no
can call
problem.
me later. We'll finish this conversation, and we'll talk about Richard Williams, too. Bye.